Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Heather. Hey,
Hey, Val.
everybody. Well, hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We want to take a minute to welcome everybody to, I believe, episode 6 of Awareness is Key.
hmm
I am your host, Valerie, and you notice there's only two of us tonight. We got Heather with us, and
Hey.
tonight we are going to be talking about financial abuse within a domestic violence relationship or a relationship involving domestic violence.
Yeah.
So we wanted to go ahead, I guess. Don't have a whole lot of statistics and stuff to show tonight. Domestic violence has so many different parts. I mean, there's so many different abuses that can fall within that. And I think financial is probably present in the majority of those cases, do you think, Heather? I
Yep.
mean,
99% of the cases
yeah,
of domestic violence involve financial abuse. Yeah.
yeah. Now, I do know that when I was reading earlier today, it said that, domestic violence, of course, can be present the whole time. But if it's
hmm
not, it is almost in every case at the end, especially when a perpetrator may sense that the victim is getting ready to leave the relationship, and that's when it would really kick into high gear.
Yeah. It's definitely a control tactic, and especially when they're leaving, when someone's trying to leave, because if you can cut off financial resources, then the person becomes dependent on the abuser, and they're less likely to leave because homelessness is a real deal, and it's scary to think about being homeless. And so yeah, it's one of
Right.
the most powerful methods of keeping a victim trapped is
Yeah.
financial abuse.
Well, now I do know also that with financial abuse,
Mhm.
that there's different types of that abuse as well. And I know that it's like, what are some that you know of, the different forms of that? Because there's so many things I think that fall underneath that.
Definitely, it can start with just forbidding the victim to go to work. You know, making someone get fired or sabotaging work opportunities. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Sabotaging work, getting them fired from a job, harassing them at their workplace so that they get in trouble or get fired, not allowing them to go to trainings or advanced educational opportunities, um, blocking bank accounts, not giving them access to the bank accounts. And it may come in the form of, oh, let me just take care of paying the bills and doing all this so that you don't have to deal with that stress. But also not giving access, not putting names on bank accounts.
Right.
Um, Sometimes they may just give you an allowance and not let you have full access to the money. Um,
What about
Controlling,
applying for credit in
yeah,
the victim's name? I mean, to kind of
yeah,
ruin the credit.
absolutely. Applying for loans, or
Uh,
having them apply for a loan in their name, but applying for credit cards, that's a big one. Lines of credit, because if they can do anything in your name and it doesn't get paid, it doesn't hurt them, but it will definitely ruin
right,
your credit, which of course puts you in a position where you can't get a loan for a house or something else. So definitely.
right. And I think today is in the day where so many landlords will check credit scores. So if a person is trying
Yeah.
to leave that relationship, if their credit is shot, that put another obstacle in their way to actually
Yeah.
be able to walk away.
And it's a big one. It's probably one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um,
Wow.
and they may just withhold funds for basic needs like food and clothes and medicine, or hide assets. Or they may, and again with the credit score, they may not pay bills. If medical bills come and they're not in their name and they're in the victim's name, um, it doesn't hurt them if they don't pay it. Again, it ruins the credit score.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think that honestly, it does create a lot of obstacles
Hmm.
for someone being able to leave.
Yeah.
And I think when I'm thinking back through the different forms of abuse that we've talked about,
Hmm.
I don't know that any of them, I mean, you think about physical violence, a lot of times that's what drives you to leave, to get
Right.
away from that.
Yeah.
But, if they're doing this whole financial abuse throughout the whole relationship, and then they've
Yeah.
created this huge obstacle to actually being able to leave, then
Yeah.
they've just found another way to trap their victim even longer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's,
Yeah.
like I said, that's a huge one. Um,
Yeah.
is not having
Yeah.
options. You know, if your credit's destroyed, like we said, they just no options to leave. And so where do you go? But
You start.
that's where we would step in, and
Yeah.
assist
Mhm.
in our
Yeah, and
organization.
and even if it's not within our 8 counties here, that is absolutely where, hopefully there's resources in other
Hmm.
communities that are
Yeah.
similar to that of a safe harbor home, that would be able to assist in those situations as well.
Yeah.
Um, did you were there any of the other ones? I know I didn't mean to interrupt you a minute
No,
ago.
you're good. Um, just trying to think if I missed anything. Refusing to pay child support. That's one. Um, manipulating the divorce process, hiding assets so that they won't have to pay more child support or alimony or some of those things. Trying to
So
think if
they
I missed
actually have ways to continue to victimize you even after
after.
you've left that relationship by using the financial aspects
Yeah.
of it.
And it's with the child support, if they don't pay it, if you have to go through the court system, there's a time period. If they garnish wages, there's still a gap. There's still a time period. So
Right.
it's definitely, they can not pay it, or you may have to call and ask them for it every month because then they're still in control because you're having to ask them for it. Um,
Right.
so yeah, that's another way to just continue when you get out of the situation and still continue to try to control you. And that's really what it's about. It's just another form of control. Everything we talk about is power and control, um, as far as what abuse tactics are. And it's just another way to control you. It's just using money, which is a huge control factor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like you just said, that is I mean, that is what domestic violence is. I
Hmm.
mean, it is absolutely 110% a way to control, whether it be
Yeah,
through the physical violence, the mental and emotional, the sexual, it's a perpetrator's method of controlling the victim,
yeah,
to get them to
absolutely.
kind of submit to what they want. And,
Hmm.
it's never okay. I don't care what kind of abuse it is. I mean, physical abuse, yes, physical abuse is bad. Financial to me is just as bad. I mean, it's just another form of control.
Hmm. It is. And this
What are
this one can have long term. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Um, I was just going to say long term effects of this one. I mean, they all have their long term effects, Trauma has long
Right.
term effects, but the financial to repair your credit, to, if you've just all of those things, that can take years to come out from underneath. If you have had all these unpaid bills on your credit score, it can take a long time to sort through that. So it's not something that just goes away just because you get out of the situation. If they have used
Yeah.
your name or, um, your information to and ruined your credit score.
Yeah, well, and not to mention if you've left with your children, if you're a partner that's fleeing with your children and they're
Mhm.
withholding child support, or they're withholding, assets that should have been declared throughout a divorce or
Yeah.
whatever, then, that is complicating your life and the ability to break free,
Yeah.
or to be able to survive outside of their control. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, that is so what were the other ones I know that you were
As
about
far as
to
different types.
yeah, was there any other of the different types?
I think we had filing false insurance claims, forcing the victim to work in a family business but not paying them. Um, and I think that's, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's
That's
the top ones
okay.
I had for right now.
What
But
about, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm good.
What about red flags, warning signs that you may start seeing if you're inside of that relationship? Let's say they have not been, there's not been any physical violence or anything like that.
Mhm.
Let's just say this person jumps right into the financial from the get go. What are some things that you might see early on, do you think, that, could be those red flags?
Um, it can be tricky because at first it may just come across as just being so loving and wanting to take care of things, um, and wanting to take care of all the bills and not
Not wanting you to
burdening,
work.
yeah, not wanting you to work. So it all could at first seem like, oh, they just really want to take care of me and they don't want me to have to go to work. Um, but it's when, I don't know. It's just when when you start seeing how, okay, but I need these things and I'm having to ask every time I want to buy something. If I want to go to the grocery store, if I want to go buy some new clothes, if I want to even just the basic necessities, and I'm having to ask permission or ask for money every time I do that,
Right.
that's a red flag. You know, and again, when we talk about these red flags and abuse, we're not talking about things that you all have mutually agreed on and that this is
Mhm.
the way our finances are set up because of XYZ situation. This is just what works best for us.
Right.
These are things that are used to control you.
Forced. They're forced
So
on you.
yeah. Or you start noticing maybe you do have a bank account, but maybe you start noticing that in your own personal account, your money is disappearing and they're saying, oh, I'll pay you back. But you see, there's this habit of they're not paying you back or they're not putting the money back. Or, you know, every time you have a job, they start showing up at work and getting in the way or harassing you and your bosses, just little subtle things like that. It
Right.
doesn't always start out major, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it's just flat out, I'm going to control the money. You don't get to say so. And this is how it's going to be.
Yeah. I keep sitting there thinking, what it would be like to have to go and ask somebody if you needed the basic necessity. And, I mean, as a female,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things that you need as a female.
Yep.
And, to know that there are people that literally will withhold the ability to purchase those things,
Yeah.
or that you have to literally like walk a line in order to be given, the money to meet those very, very basic needs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Stressful. It'd
it's
be very
yeah,
stressful, humiliating, degrading to have to ask all the time. You
yeah,
shouldn't be forced to ask permission to get your basic necessities.
right.
Um,
Now let me remind everybody that this is not just a female victim
no.
situation. I mean, males as well can be victims of
Hmm.
any form of domestic violence, including the financial abuse that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe they have to go out and they do go to work, but they come home and, the paycheck goes to their partner, and they literally have, I mean, it can go either way. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe they're not working, maybe they're staying at home and the partner goes out to work. So I mean, this is absolutely something that does not just affect women.
No.
It very much is it knows no boundaries, and we've talked
No.
about that in every single live that we've done so far.
Yep.
Um, I mean, I know, and Heather, you've talked about before how you are a survivor,
Mhm.
And I know that you come in here and you speak on a lot of these topics
Mm.
with some personal experience.
Right.
And, so I know that when you're talking about some of these things, and I'm not going to get into your story,
Mhm.
because that is something, but I do know that you do have some experiences with the different forms. And I'm assuming
Absolutely.
financial is one that you probably, have also felt.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
Um, the child support, having to ask for child
Yeah.
support, that was a major one. Thankfully, we're past that point now, so I have that off of
Okay.
me. But yeah, it's frustrating. Probably not so much financial abuse as other forms of abuse, but
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it
But,
is it's a control thing, and it's something you don't want to ask for if you don't need it.
right.
You just want to be like, keep your money because I'm not
Hmm.
asking for it because it is a form of control, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I also think
Um,
about it this way too. If you are fleeing a domestic violence situation, the last thing in the world I would think that you would want to do is once you get away from that relationship, then to have to turn around and depend on that person with any kind of financial support
mhm.
afterwards. I mean, I
It's
know that
hard.
it's sometimes, I mean, yeah, I know sometimes, and it more than people have a responsibility to support their children. That should be a given.
Mhm.
That should absolutely be a given.
Right.
But that is not always the case. And to feel like you are either having to approach that person and ask them to help, or you're having to go through the court system and constantly going back to court and back to court and back to court.
Mhm.
I can just imagine for a victim that would be extremely difficult to continue to
Right.
have
And
to
then,
face that.
you're talking about if you decide if you really want to take it back to court, which there's ways around that. The child support enforcement, they can take care of it if they're in. I'm trying to think. I don't even know what the percentage is they have to be behind, so you don't have to go to court to get things taken care of. But it's still a long process, and
Yeah.
and then in the meantime, but if you have to continue going back to court for anything after you are away from somebody, after you've divorced, after you've separated, then that's lawyer fees. That's still more money that you're
Yeah.
having to put out. So yeah, it makes it difficult.
So, yeah, and that also would have to go along with the financial abuse, I would think, because
Mhm.
that is a form of continuing to add more money on, money that
Yeah,
you don't have already. So,
right. And
um,
that does happen.
yeah. So what else you got over there? I see you with your list. What else you got?
The only thing, I had a couple of statistics that I did find. Um,
Okay.
59% of credit was harmed by people's abuser. 70% of victims were not able to have a job. They weren't allowed to work. And then 53% lost a job due to their abuser. But the estimation was that survivors lose nearly $53,000 a year in lost wages, or not in a
Wow.
year, in their lifetime, in lost wages due to either the lack of paid sick days or other job preventions. If you're not there, you don't get paid. So, um,
Right.
yeah, it's substantial.
I was just sitting back too thinking, and we're going to be talking about mental and emotional abuse coming up in the next
Hmm.
week or so. I know that. But,
Yep.
the when you're thinking about not being able to work, that can also go under the mental and emotional abuse as
Hmm.
well. If someone is controlling you and they're wanting to isolate you and to keep you away from people and
Yep.
everything. But, I also think, are there cases where the abuser actually stays home and the
Hmm.
victim is made to go out and to work? And,
Absolutely.
I think there's just all these different, when you sit and think about it,
Hmm. It can
there's
go in a
just all
lot of
these
different
different,
directions. Yeah.
yeah, it really can. It really can. And those statistics, they're mind blowing. And when I was trying to find statistics, it's super easy to find the statistics on the physical, the mental, the sexual,
Hmm.
financial. I is one of those that there are some statistics, but I don't think as many as because I don't know that people talk about it as openly, because how
No.
many are people really aware that financial abuse is really a thing? Or do a lot of people not think about it? And I think that's the case.
Yeah, I think it possibly is too, except for the people who are going through it.
Yeah. Well, I know that in maybe next week we will be
Hmm.
looking at maybe spiritual abuse, which is a thing. It really is a thing, and I think we're going to
Hmm.
have kind of some of the same issues with finding a lot of statistics and a lot of information and a lot of
Right.
things on that as well.
Yep. It'll be another kind of short overview, but just to get it out
Yeah.
there. Same with financial abuse. There's not a lot you can talk about with financial abuse. I mean, it is what it is, and same thing with the spiritual abuse. So, mhm.
Yeah. So I think maybe spiritual abuse would be a good one to do next week.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm assuming we can let Lily and Daniel know that, but I
Yeah.
don't think they'll have an issue with doing that either. And then I think we will probably save the a big one, which is probably the emotional and
Mhm.
mental for the
The
week after
following.
that. Yeah.
That sounds good.
I I do want to go ahead and put it out here because I did not open with this tonight. The reason that we do these lives is we do believe that through education and awareness will come prevention. And that is what our goal is with these lives,
Hmm.
as well as the goals of a safe harbor home, which is, they want to help victims and we want to help prevent their being victims. And
Yeah.
that's the reason that we really do want to get on here and share as much knowledge as we can.
Yep.
Um, I have had scrolling across the bottom of the screen, I've had information about a safe harbor home, the counties that they do serve. They serve the 8 counties in Northeast Tennessee. But if you do not live in these areas, if you do reach out to them, they will help find the resources that you need in the areas that you are in. So I've also had the number for the domestic violence hotline has been scrolling across the bottom. If you are a victim of domestic violence and you're in a situation that is an emergent situation, the number one priority is to get to safety. If you're in a dangerous situation, you call 911, get out, just leave. If you are not in an emergent situation, you can call the hotline or you can reach out to Lily and Daniel at a safe harbor home, which is 423-218-0774. And what am I forgetting? Heather, what's your final thoughts on financial? I mean, unless you've got something else, this is going to be a
Mm-mm.
super short one tonight.
No, no.
But do you have some final thoughts on financial abuse?
Um, I don't know what really else to add to it. It's just probably one of the most powerful tools, I guess, to add. At just reiterate that is it's the number one most powerful way to keep somebody trapped in a relationship is financial abuse.
Yes. And I am going to add that abuse in any way, shape, fashion, or form is not okay. It's
Yeah.
never okay. Victims do not ask to be abused.
No.
And, abuse is abuse, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, sexual, spiritual, financial, it's abuse and it's not
Hmm.
okay. And again, if you have any questions or also I do want to direct you back to the website of a safe harbor home, which is a safeharborhome.org. Email address is info@asafeharborhome.org. But you can go to their website, check out their different programs, and if you're interested in finding ways to help, whether it be through volunteer or even financial, you can find the links on their website. So that is all we have tonight, I think,
Yep.
honestly. It's a super short one, but filled with a lot of information.
Yeah. Thank you so
So
much.
Oh, thank y'all. And I am going to give me just a minute. I'm going to try to find our little exit out of here videos. Lily better be proud of me because I am honestly, she is normally the one that does this. So, all right, Heather, I'm going to get us out of here.
All righty.
Thank
Thanks. You've done a great
you.
job.
Thanks, you too. Hang on. I'm going to get us out now.